Hey, Katy-K, thank you so much for joining me again. How are you?
I'm wonderful. And thank you, Kaye, for having me. I'm so excited. Every time I come on your podcast, I just feel excited. I can feel your energy and I feed off it really well. And I love teaching your listeners and talking to them.
We had a beautiful response to our last chat, which was late last year, episode 45, for anybody that's listening and wants to learn Katy-K's backstory after this episode. And I just loved your lightness and your joy. And I really think that comes through in your voice through the screen. So thank you for bringing lightness to spirituality, because that's something that I believe can be packaged in and be fun in a fun way.
Certainly, and that's what I intend to do. I'm called the Modern Oracle because I want to bring it into modern times. We need to know how to fix modern problems and how to learn in a modern way and it not be so mystical and secret. Like, I love mysticism, but everything doesn't have to be such a secret. We can make things simple, and I simplify everything. But also, I've set out to prove why we should accept all the spiritual knowledge that's out there. Why do we accept that meditation works? Why do we accept that protection works? All the things that I cover in my book. There you go. The Modern Oracle, how to tap into your unique psychic powers. And so there's lessons in there as well as the proof and the stories that prove everything as I go through the book.
Katy-K, we know you're an internationally renowned psychic medium, and along with sharing resources, anyone that's listening today can also learn how to develop their psychic abilities with you. They can also learn how to bring messages through. And so my first question was going to be to you, do we all have psychic powers?
Yes, we all do. And I cover that in the book, how you can tap into them. It's a choice whether you use them or not. And a big part of it is believing in them. If you don't believe in them, they won't be there. So it's very much a trust situation. And, we trust that when we hop on a plane, that it's going to stay in the sky unless something goes wrong, of course. But the majority of them do stay in the sky and we land safely. But we don't know how that plane gets up unless we're into that sort of thing. We just walk on there and trust. And when we drive a car, we trust that the person's going to stay on the other side of the road and not veer onto our side. Otherwise, we'd never hop in a car. And psychic development is very much about trust, trusting that you can do this, trusting that it's going to work, even though you don't know how it works. And I've always said, I want to know how this works. Why should I trust it? And so I've always said to my guides when I've learned something, prove it. If this is so, prove it. Tell me how I can do this. And always I end up in the right place to try to prove it or to learn that it is so.
For our listeners who might be listening and really curious around exploring spirituality, but don't believe that they have psychic abilities, how do we learn to identify what our own unique abilities could be?
Okay, I've got a little quiz in the book that you can do, but also, there are many types of psychic powers, which again is in the book, and all the clairs, you would have heard about them. So clairaudient is clear hearing, clairsentient is clear feeling. And I'll say that clairsentients, they're the ones that cry at weddings. It's a happy time, but they're feeling all the emotion. Yeah, I'm there. They'll be crying in a movie and everyone's watching them because, even though it's not real, they're into that emotion. They can walk into a room and feel that something's not right. It might be, oh, they've been arguing. You can feel that. You can feel the tension, and they might have the brightest smiles on, but you will feel it. You can feel whether you like someone or not. And and it's not about being judgmental, it's about being discerning. So I cover all those things, but how they can start to develop is to start to meditate, so they learn how to focus. Now, I've got a lot of clients with ADHD, And teaching them how to focus has been a little challenge, but I've learned all the secrets to doing that. And you can do it. And I've devised different ways of meditating so that they can do it. Every one of us has times where we can't focus because we've got a lot of problems or things happening in the background. And quietening the mind and learning to focus is the first step, because once you do that, you can then hold a link and focus. You've got to think the spirit world vibrates very high and we vibrate very low. And we need to raise our vibration and they need to lower their vibration. And if we can't do that and hold that link, then our readings are very short or our connection is very short. And we can also be misunderstood. You may have someone from the spirit world saying, I didn't love him. And you get, you miss the didn't because your energy drops, love him. And you say, well, your father said he loved you. And he goes, no, he didn't. You haven't got my father there. You got someone else there. And even if you're just channeling from your guides, again, holding that link so that you get the right information that you need, that you can stay in that conversation. It's a bit like if we're having a conversation, there's a lot going on around, and the ADHD people will be going, oh, look at that person over there while you're having a conversation. And then, it's about, you're trying to focus and listen, but something's happening in the background. Kids are crying, a cash register's going off, you can hear the coffee machine. And that is learning to focus like that so that you and I can have a conversation and all that stuff can happen in the background, but we still are understanding and hearing each other.
I love that. So the key is to quieten your mind, to relax. So find something that's relaxing, and then you don't have to always go looking for it.
No, the synchronicities will happen. They'll come to you. In my book, I explain all the synchronicities. I explain, how they're messages, how they are related to your development, what all the signs are. It could be, I remember after I went to the college, I had a white owl visit me. And I was coming back from my cottage where I do the readings. And it's not very far from my home, and it was dark. And as I turned the corner, there was a white owl. And I've never seen a white owl before, not even around here, sitting in the middle of the road. And I drove right up to close as I wanted to get without, I didn't want to hurt it or anything. And it never moved. It just kept staring at me. So I drove around it and it took off. And when I got to my gates, which I had to open manually in the dark times before electric gates happened at our home, there was the white owl sitting on the top of the gates. And it was looking at me again. And so I left the engine running and I had to get out to open the gates so I could drive through, and it stayed on the gates. It didn't fly away. And when I drove through, I ran in and got the family to come out because I wanted them to see this. And they saw me close the gate and the owl stayed there. And then as I drove into the garage, it flew to the top of the roof. And I came out and we're looking at this owl and, and wondering, why is this owl here? Why is it looking like it's a bit of a stalker? All that sort of stuff. And I meditated on it, and they said it was the coming of wisdom. And the owl is very much about the getting of wisdom. We think of the wise owl. But again, when you're looking at signs and synchronicities, I encourage everyone to start their own dictionary, because if we're looking at the meaning of an owl, a visit from the owl, in the Western world here, we believe that it is the getting of wisdom. But when I went to Rhodes in Greece, in the middle, they have this fountain with an owl sitting up at the top. And they have owls for sale everywhere. Everywhere you're looking, there's little owl statues, they're carved in different products and all the rest of it. And so I asked, why is this owl everywhere? Why are you all selling the owl? And they said it meant good luck. And they said the owl at the top of the fountain was watching over them all and keeping them safe, protected, and giving them good luck. Because, the owl can see in 360 degrees, supposedly. And so then I went, wow, that's another meaning. So when you're communicating with spirit and they show me an owl, I will say, well, that's about wisdom. But someone in Greece, if they're shown an owl, that might be about good luck. And so you would take what your meaning is. You know, I'm not sure if we spoke about the butterfly last time, the symbol of the butterfly. Did we do that, Kaye? Do you
I
remember?
can't remember.
Well, you know, a butterfly can have many meanings. For most, it's transformation. For me, it was always freedom. I look at that butterfly and I think, you don't have a mortgage. You don't have to worry about paying for your petrol. You don't have screaming kids running around you. And you're just having a good time amongst the flowers. It doesn't know that it doesn't have a long life, as far as I know. And it, you know, that's freedom to me, freedom from everything, to do what you want to do. But to some people, it means fragile, because when you touch a butterfly, it's so fragile that you can damage it. So when I teach my students, I say, don't take on what I believe. It's about what you believe. What is your meaning for that? Because, you know, in every language, the word cheese has a different pronunciation, a different meaning. Like in France, it's fromage. In Norway, it's going to be something else, but it's still cheese. So I encourage my students to create a dictionary of terms at the back of their psychic journal. And so in it, they'll say, when you show me a butterfly, it means freedom. Do you see where I'm going with this? When you show me an owl, it means the coming of wisdom. So I teach you lots of that stuff so you can develop.
I agree with you 100%.
Oh, good.
And when clients come into my healing room, I say the same thing. No matter what information I share with you, it is imperative that you filter that through your own intuition.
Fantastic.
And work out for yourself what resonates and what doesn't.
Yes.
And every healer who has your best interests at heart, psychic medium, anyone that works in this industry,
yes,
will say that to you as well, because ultimately we are all trying to connect more deeply with our own intuition. And yourself and myself, we're here to hold space. Yes. So we serve as the channels for that information to come through, but everybody can in fact do that for themselves if they want to, right?
They totally can. And you know, they don't have to worry about how quickly they're going to develop. Everyone develops in their own time when they're meant to develop. You know, if you've got a lot of things happening in your life and you don't have time to put aside time to develop, well, then you need to just respect that, and the time will come when you can develop. And, you know, if you have the desire to develop and you go following that trail and you learn and you know, just develop yourself further, then you are going on that path and you can develop fast. But I saw a meme and it had 2 ladders, and one had big spaces that you had to climb. One had lots of little rungs. So it was easy to run up that ladder because there were just tiny ones. But the one with the big spaces between the rungs, you had to sort of propel yourself up, and it was a lot harder, and you might have even had to climb up it. So it's about learning all these little bits and knowing that you're building a strong foundation which can build you a strong pyramid of wealth and knowledge with a great base that's not going to topple. And some people, you know, they might say, oh, you teach about grounding, protection, and that's pretty basic. Well, I know, because all the psychics were in my family were psychic. I didn't learn that. And I went off to college and I got thrown straight into an intermediate class, which was the highest class on that particular course. And they're all talking about psychic protection and grounding and clearing. And I'm thinking, what is that? And I wasn't going to ask because I thought they'd all laugh at me because they were saying it's very basic. You know, the tutor had said, and, you know, all the basics like that. So being an intermediate class, my pride wouldn't allow me to put my hand up and say, well, what is that? So I, you know, cover that in the book as well. And I do go through the clairs. I had one of my tutors post on Facebook, what's the clair that's called about, clear tasting or clear smelling? I have all that in my book, and how you access it and how you know it's happening.
I love that you mentioned that, because I just had my essential oil here before I jumped on the call, and I actually was sitting here just connecting in that way, which is a really simple way to bring yourself back to the present moment, right?
It totally is.
It's wild orange.
I love wild orange. You brought all this up, and with the essential oils, some spirits have a calling card. Now, my grandmother, I smell gardenias, and it'll come out of nowhere. But I might be reading for someone whose loved one smoked, so I'll smell cigarettes when there's none in the place and I've never smoked. Do you know what I mean? So that's just using one of the clairs. You might hear, which comes through as a thought, because all of your senses can be objective or subjective. So objective, I can see this deck, the Modern Oracle of Essential Oils, like that. Or subjectively, I see it in my head. Both work. But it's easier to bring through something in your head than for the spirit world to physically make something that you can see and touch.
I love that you brought into the conversation flowers and cigarettes. I love that my grandmother always finds a way into my conversations, because one of the first signs that she brought to me after she passed away was the distinct aroma of her cigarette sitting here in my office right now. And she smoked a certain brand of French cigarettes called de Marrière.
Ah.
And she was also somebody who loved to grow roses. So don't you love the synchronicity and how, because I was thinking of asking you, how do you recognize the signs? And it's like Spirit's like, well, we'll just bring it into the conversation right now.
There you go. That is how it happens. It is. When I'd been at college and I went there, and my tutor said, look, he used to call me Miss Oz. And he'd say, Miss Oz, you know everything. I don't even know why you're here. He says, what do you want to get out of this course this time? And I said, I want to strengthen my clairvoyance. And he said, why? And I said, because, I think it'd be good to strengthen my clairvoyance. He said, okay, Miss Oz, we're going to work on that. And you know what? I should have just been happy with my clairaudience, which is my strongest, and my clairsentience, because a picture tells 1,000 words, as they say. So if you see a car, you got to go, well, what's wrong with the car? If it looks old, well, do they need to replace it? Do they need to fix it? So you're playing charades. And you know how we get it all, can get it wrong easily in charades. So one of the first exercises was I had to connect, and I could only say, I see. And I was only to use that gift, not all the other senses. And what happened was I saw a tin of Campbell's soup. And I thought, well, what do I do with a tin of Campbell's soup? And so all I could do was say, I'm seeing a tin of Campbell's soup. And the sitter, who's the person getting the reading, said, my grandfather's name, his surname was Campbell. And I said, but he loved soup as well. And she goes, yes. So then the next thing was I saw coins. So what do you do with coins? So I said, would you understand if I said he collected coins? And she said, yes, he's got a coin collection. So you're really pulling hard, struggling with that clairvoyance. I was anyway, unless you see it as a movie. And I have seen it as a movie, and it has saved my whole family's life. And you'll read about that in the book as well. Then when we get to, protection, why should we believe in it? You just say, please protect myself, or however you do it. I teach you how to do it in less than a minute. And one time we checked into a hotel, and every morning, I was sleeping with my husband, of course, as you do. Every morning I'd wake up feeling like I was having a heart attack. And this went on for 3 mornings, and my husband was getting really upset. He said, what if we flip the mattress? What if we do this? I really want to call the ambulance. And I kept saying, no, this is an energetic thing, I know. And I'm talking to my daughter later on, and she said, Mum, did you protect the room and the bed? And I said, no. And she goes, rookie mistake, because that's what I would say to her. And I put the protection on the bed and the room and never woke up feeling like I was having a heart attack again. So this was spirit bringing through the proof of why and how it worked. When we went to check out, my husband waited in the car, I ran in with the key, and I said to the woman, how long ago did that lady have the heart attack in that room? And she said, how do you know that? She said, we're trying to keep it a secret or no one will want to stay in that room. And I said, oh, I think someone was talking about it. She said, but no one knows. And I said, oh, must have been someone said something. And I got out real quick because my cover was blown and I didn't want to go into that. And so that is one of the ways they will prove things to you through synchronicity. I know my husband and I are meant to be together. Our parents were both married on the same day in May. And I say, you better not try to get away from me. This is synchronicity. We were meant to be together. And he just laughs. You know, and as well as 4 other things that happened. There were 5 things that happened on the 19th of May. And I'll teach you all about that in the book as well.
That's amazing. Now, my next question for you, do we need to be spiritual to be psychic?
No, we don't need to be spiritual to be psychic. Everyone is psychic. But those that don't believe, their muscle is flaccid. They're not working it. You know, not everyone has to go to the gym. If they don't go to the gym, they're not lifting weights or anything heavy, their muscles will be flaccid. But if they do go to the gym, they can make a fist and you'll see a muscle. Or they can just put their arm up and there's a muscle. Our psychic powers are like that. The more you use them, the stronger they get. And then if you're not using them, say, look at it as if you had a broken leg and you had a cast on. And when that cast comes off 6 weeks later, that leg, the muscles atrophied. It's smaller than the other leg. And so when you don't use it, it goes calmer. You know, it's not there as much. You're not paying it any attention. You're not tapping into it. You're not using it. One thing I've noticed, because I do palm reading, and on your palm, there is a place where you have the psychic cross between the headline and the heart line. And I have watched over the years as this cross has gotten deeper and deeper and deeper. And then I've had clients when I've pointed out, well, you've only got half of one there. You know, only one side of the cross is up there. But if you start using this, you'll watch the other part come up. And they do.
That's wonderful.
You want to know where the cross is now, don't you?
Yeah, I was looking at my hand.
Well, as I said, between the heart and the headline, I don't know if you can see this, but if you have a look, you will see a cross right there. See it?
Yep. Oh.
Okay. Now, some people have it deep, some people have it faint. And again, as you develop, I have noticed on my students and myself that it gets deeper.
Wow. So my question to you, because we were talking about trusting in your psychic powers earlier, how did you learn to trust in your powers when you first started?
Well, I come from a long line of psychics, so they're on both sides of my family tree. And I grew up with my mother saying, you can't do this because this is going to happen if you do. I'm psychic, I know this. And so then if we didn't do it, obviously it didn't happen because we wouldn't push the bear. You know, we wouldn't go do this and put ourselves in danger. And so I would tell her things and they would happen and we'd just go through life like that. But I actually shut down at an early stage of life and then I reopened again when I couldn't hold it back. And what I found was, this is why I kept saying, if this is real, I need to trust it, so prove it. And as things were proven, I got stronger. So my book is about, hey, this is the story that tells you why you can trust this. You don't have to go proving it. the story's in there, and there's many people that will verify the stories in the book. And so therefore, that is an expressway to get to places by trusting, because trust is very hard to build. And it's like pendulums, you know, you have to build a relationship with that pendulum. Otherwise, it'll tell you lies. And I think we did talk about that last time. So trust is something that is earned, and it comes back to the more you use it, the more you begin to trust it. You know, if you've got a door that slams shut, you expect it to slam shut all the time. Say it's a really heavy door. But if you put a, I can't even think what they are, but a stopper or whatever to slow the door down, first off, you're waiting for it to slam. But then you start to trust that door, whatever it is, door closer. And so therefore you start to trust it and trust it and trust it until it fails. Now, sometimes we can lose our momentum. We can start to not trust when we get something wrong. And that something wrong can be a misunderstanding, especially if you're clairvoyant. You know, what's that car doing there? The easiest way to say is, I see money being spent on a car. Whether they're buying it, fixing it, registering it, whatever. And so the trust is built. The more you do, the more confidence you get. You have to have confidence to trust. You know, if the dog's always going to bite you, it has to learn to trust you. You have to learn to trust it. You have to get confidence it's not going to bite you. Otherwise, you're not going to go near it.
I think too, having worked with a lot of young people, what I've noticed is when children are young, they're encouraged to keep trying new things. And so it is something that they accept internally. I'm at school to learn, which is learning about new things, which means sometimes putting myself in outside my comfort zone. And that is where confidence comes into our being, is when we put ourselves into a place of uncomfortableness, however that is for you. And somewhere along the line as adults, not all adults, we stop doing that. We get to a point where we stop learning about new things. Like I see so many adults get to a point in life where this is it. Okay, I'm good now.
It's a learned behavior not to trust, because I cover this in the book as well. We are born with two fears: the fear of loud noises and the fear of falling. And that's the startled reflex. They're the only two. The rest we learn. The time we fall over, we learn, hey, if I go too quick, I'm going to fall over. We may learn from our parents' experiences. We may learn, say your parents get a divorce, you may not trust that marriage works anymore. Mm-hmm. If you, if you lose something, you might trust that you can't hang on to it or find it again. You know, there's different ways. I remember this time where I went out in a boat and we were all swimming and there was a strong current. And my aunt reached up and she'd lost a pearl earring. And we're thinking, all this sand, all this water, we're never going to find this pearl earring. But we never gave up searching. The current was so strong, we were having to hold a rope so we didn't wash away. Guess what? We found the pearl earring within 10 minutes. We trusted, we asked, and it happened. We believed it would happen. So we didn't give up. So if you believe you can develop your powers and you don't give up, you will. The spirit world will put you in the right place at the right time. It may be that they meet Kaye or they meet Katy-K, who guides them. And they will find many ways themselves as well. You know, a lot of times I can be in a bookshop and a book will drop on my foot, open it, the page that has a message on it. I do these live readings once a month, and this last month I did it 3 times, where I don't know the person. I might know the name or recognize the name. I have nothing except they say hello and I have to connect to them. But because I trust my tools, it's very easy. And always they say that message meant so much. What you said meant so much. And of course, I can't go into a lot of detail because it's not the Jerry Springer show. And there's a lot of things that you can't say in front of an audience that would, they're private. And I teach my students that. One of the things we mentioned before we got on the podcast is I go through some of the myths there is about psychics. And one of them is people expect you to be on all day, every day, that they can just walk up to you and you're just going to be able to tell them anything. And I teach my students that is like leaving the gas stove on all day and eventually you run out of gas. You're using energy when you connect. And I tell people it's a place I go to. I connect, so I'm not wasting their time and my time. And then I deliver the messages. But it doesn't stop me from getting warnings about things. I use my clairsentient as to whether I like someone or whether I'm going to trust them. I use my clairvoyance to see if there's an issue coming. I will hear my guides tell me something. And so your powers will still work, but if you're the person that's on tap, you will have no boundaries and people will have no boundaries and they will be asking you, they'll be ringing you, they'll be stopping you in the supermarket and saying, do you think this heart pain's serious? Should my son get a loan with Suncorp or Westpac? All these things you don't expect people to ask.
Do you get those questions?
All the time. And they expect you just to do this. And you might be on an outing or you might be in your head going, I just need bread, milk and lettuce. And of course, you get distracted.
I get those questions occasionally.
Yeah.
I'm the same with you. I have my time and place.
Yes. You've got to have a life. You've been put on this world to have a human experience.
Mm-hmm.
When you connect to the spirit world, you're looking for guidance. You're looking to expand, to, develop all those things. But you can't have the spirit world on a retainer, saying, hey, just hang around because I might need you at some stage. And yes, they can cope, but you won't because you can't keep expanding that energy all the time. People say to me, I'll do in expos, I'll do back-to-back readings. Every 15 minutes, someone gets up, another person sits down. I don't remember anyone's readings because how can you? You might, sometimes I see 24 people in a weekend, maybe more. And so you're just doing this on and on. And they say, don't you run out of energy? And I said, yeah, I do. But I ride that energy until the end of the day. And then I say, thank you, disconnect. And then I might feel it. And when I come back from an expo, my husband expects me to be, have run out of energy. But whilst I'm doing these readings, I ride the wave. I stay in that energy. I keep that vibration high because if I was coming up and down all the time, that takes energy as well. So I like being booked back to back with just enough time for a restroom visit or a drink of water.
And so for someone that's listening today who is psychic or works in the energy healing field, I love that you talk about maintaining, being in a zone and maintaining and being able to do that. What are the practical implications of not being able to do that? Because our body, our mind, body, soul is the one entity. Yes. And so for you, with your experience, what have you learnt that you have to do to take good care of yourself so that you can do this work? And what have you learnt you cannot do for you to be able to do this work?
Okay, so when I'm working, I eat as lightly as I can. I will have a shake, a protein shake, because that helps you when you're exercising. That helps me as well. I make sure I take a lot of magnesium in the many forms. So it'd be a tablet, might be an oil I'm rubbing in, because that helps me from aching, from sitting down all the time. You basically have to look after your body. if you want quality to come out of it. Because if you don't, you end up sick, you end up in hospital. And I see a lot of physical mediums, and this is why I choose not to do physical mediumship. They aren't very healthy. They have health issues. You get the odd person that doesn't because they're looking after their body, but they also crave a lot of sugar, which puts a lot of weight on them as well. So I walk every day. After readings, I walk in nature to ground myself again. And I just, do a little talk to my guides and say, I'm really happy. Thank you so much. I couldn't do it without you. Praise them up. We all want to hear praise. And I know that they say, well, they're spirits. They don't mind. But it feels good for me to give gratitude. And the more gratitude you give, the higher your vibration. And, so you just have to really look after yourself. I cover ley lines and energetic places and how you can raise your energy in these places. Because I know when I'm going to these places, I want to ask to raise. I want an upgrade. Now, I choose not to drink. And I will drink at weddings and celebrations, or if we're on a night out, but I do not drink at home or any other time because I'm a lightweight. And what happens is because I'm clairsentient, I feel everything on express. So I might have 2 drinks and then the hangover's straight there. And I'm going, oh, good. If I keep going, it gets worse. I've got to go. The minute I stop drinking, the hangover will come. And that is because I'm very sensitive. And there'll be a lot of other things that happen. The more you go through this work, the more sensitive you can become to the outside world. So you have to protect yourself. There's another line on your palm called the line of sensitivity, which also used to be called the line of poison. Because there's things happening that are making you sensitive. And so as I've gone on, these lines have gone deeper and deeper and deeper. And you'll see it there. See it?
Yeah.
Line?
Yep.
Both hands. Now, that is a really full-on line because I read palms. I see so many palms. And that is one of the signs of someone who is clairsentient. And so you really have to look after yourself if you want quality. If you're not feeling well, you can imagine your connection's not going to be as well either because you don't have the energy. So staying well, I'm a germ phobic. If someone's got a cold, I'm like, I'm not going near them because I can't afford to get a cold. I'm booked out. I've got nowhere to move these people. And it's not nice, I admit, but again, I have to protect my energy. People expect it.
Self-care, I think, is something that's important for everyone.
Massages. Yeah, everyone. Massages are really good.
It's just more important for people who are in jobs or careers where they are connecting energetically into other people's energy fields, whether you're caring for people in the work that you do and you do a service base. So I think what you're talking to can be related to a lot of people, but especially so if you're using your energy consciously every day. And I have the same experience with alcohol. Cannot go near alcohol, have one drink and I'm hungover the next day. And that came as a result in conjunction with this work. But I recognize that. You're the first person that's actually shared that story because I've never heard of anybody else feeling that way. And I put 2 and 2 together and I realized, okay, this spirituality work that I'm doing, that is why alcohol doesn't want to go in my system anymore.
Well, if you think about alcohol, it changes your energy.
Mm-hmm.
It either calms you down or makes you a bit more alive. And I can get away with 2 drinks. It's when I go more that it's a problem. And as I said, I don't have to wait till the next day. I come down real quick, the headache's there, feeling nauseous, party and ended. It's all over. So if I just have 2, it's fine. And another thing with clairsentience, they don't even have to drink. They feed off the energy around them. And so they can be like the life of the party and appear like they've been drinking because they're tapping into that energy, whether it's consciously or unconsciously.
And I think it's just a choice. If you want to have a good time, you're going to have a good time, right?
Yeah. And I've got nothing against alcohol. But if, again, you know, if you've got an allergy to wheat, then you avoid wheat because you're sensitive to it, whether it's an allergy, a sensitivity, whatever the reason is, you avoid it. And so, again, I'm happy to have a bit of a glass of wine if I'm out to dinner and I'm not working the next day. I will do that.
I noticed last night my youngest daughter made enchiladas for us, and I do have sensitivity to dairy, and I was like, oh, I'm just going to enjoy this sour cream and this cheese with my enchiladas. And this morning, wake up with phlegmy throat and bit of bad breath. And so, you know, and my eldest daughter said to me, you know, this is going to happen every time you have dairy.
My husband says that every time I have a hot cross bun or a chocolate. He goes, well, you knew what you were doing.
Sometimes we just take that risk.
Totally. You know, you get to the stage where you go, you only live once.
Yeah, that's right.
In this lifetime, though, because I do believe in past lives, you're living in the moment and you want to look back and say you enjoyed the moment. So you can't be a Nazi about it. You know, you can't be so type A personality, which I tend to be. Otherwise, you wreck everyone else's time around you.
I think you have to pay attention to whether that's causing you stress. And if any decision that you're making is causing you stress, even though it's the right thing to do, you really need to honor your energy first and then make that decision from a place of feeling good. Because I know, being a health coach, that I was in a space where, oh, you have to eat a certain way. And I was so strict about it for a while there. And then I realized the impact it was having on people around me. And then went, oh, is this worth it?
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So, yeah, balance is very important.
Yeah, you have to have some balance, and you have to, everyone's body is different. So if your vessel is not strong and fit, you will not be able to work as long. You might only be able to do 1 or 2 readings or 3 readings a day. But if you are looking after yourself, you'll be able to do more. And it doesn't matter what size or shape you are, we all have the potential to develop our psychic gifts. It's about how dedicated you are and how you look after yourself. I always say your body is the computer. And when I go looking for an energy upgrade, that's the software. And you can't put an iPhone 12 into software into an iPhone 4. It's just not going to work. So you need to upgrade your hardware. And so I talk about these ley lines and these energetic spaces and how I've proved they work and how to find them and how, you know, and asking about, hey, I want an upgrade. And I proved that if you don't have your body ready for it, you get really sick. And that happened to me. I just asked for it. And now I say I want an upgrade for as much as my body can take and mind healthily. I want to stay healthy. I don't want the whole lot so that your hardware crashes.
I learnt that from you last time we spoke, and I actually use that myself now. When I'm up leveling and upgrading energetically, I do the same thing.
Yeah, and with that, when you put that in, the spirit world knows, hey, we can only give her this much.
Yeah.
Think of it as medicine, say. You know, you don't want to overdose, because if you overdose, you get a negative reaction.
Now, I would love to ask you, is your book, is it a companion to your decks? Can you work with them together, or is it separate?
The book is separate. The book is the part of me that I was going to write 10 years ago. And I'm glad that I didn't, because I've learnt so much more in the last 10 years. But at that time, the book was all there. It was all written up. And I thought, well, no one knows me. Who's going to buy my book? So I created the deck first, because that was channeled, the Modern Oracle. That was first deck in 2015. 2019, the Modern Oracle of Essential Oils come along, and it's even more advanced than the Modern Oracle, but they both work in together if you want to, or separately. And then the book came, and people kept asking me the same questions over and over and over again. How can I develop more? How can I be more psychic? How can I tell if I'm psychic? You know, how do I believe? How do I develop to trust? You know, what is there something I have to do? I've had students think that they have to meditate an hour before they can connect. And I just do it meditate for 5 minutes, if that, and then connect. Because that's you know, when you meditate for reading purposes, it's about setting the intention. No one spells that out. They just sort of start teaching you the levels. In this book, I spell it out. I take out all the padding. I try to cover as many subjects as I can. And, you know, not everything can be in one little book. I was only allowed 40,000 words too. And just as well, it would have cost a lot more. But you get to experience what I experienced while I was learning at the other Finlay College. You get to experience, you know, when I was channeling, what it felt like, how I knew I was channeling, how I proved what I channeled was correct. I teach you about, you know, that you are unique. You're going to have different skill sets and different gifts, and that's okay. You do not have to be like anyone else. You can work with what you have, but you can expand. I talk about psychic tools and choosing the right one for you, how to do readings, what it's like being a psychic, what your life's like, you know, animal communication. You know, one of the stories happened recently at my hairdresser's, and she was like, wow. And I said, can I put this story in my book? She said, yeah. So this is why it was good that it wasn't written 10 years ago, because there's so much more in there now. You know, how you know it's a message, and all the senses that you work with. Do you have to have psychics in the family tree? No. You know, you might have a head start, but I know my two children are both psychic, but they have different strengths in different ways, but they're really good. But at this stage, they're choosing not to use them. And I was the same. You know, you got to have a life. My husband once said to me, why do you hang around with dead people all day when you could be living? He says, you're going to get there soon enough. And I got to thinking, and it was a message, because 2 days later, another psychic and I were talking, and she says, I'm not doing mediumship anymore. And I said, why? She says, because I want to live, and I'm hanging out with all these dead people, and I'm going to get there soon enough. And I went, wow, that's come through twice. And so I thought, there is a message there. So I limit my mediumship time. And I do the psychic time all the time. But I also limit the days that I work as well. And then when the time comes up and everything's going good, I'll release a day. Because you don't know if you're going to get sick, or if someone else around you is going to get sick or need something. You don't know. I don't want to call it a better offer, but you don't like to be the one that missed out on going on a surprise trip somewhere. Do you know what I mean? You need to be able to move things around. And so it takes months to get into me, but I always say, don't stop looking, because we keep releasing days. As I find out, yeah, nothing's happening this week, I'll do some extra days. I can afford to leave that, you know, put those days out there. So we do it that way. But this book will change your life. And, you know, the person that edited it isn't a woo-woo person, and she loved it just as well. She had to read it several times. But, you know, I'm already getting really good reviews, and people are saying they can't put it down. They just want to keep reading it. And I want to say, if you've got my book and you're enjoying it, please leave a review on my website, www.katy.com.
Are you thinking of creating an Audible version?
I looked into that because I had someone that had restrictive eyesight. And it starts at about $6,000 to get into that. And I really need to sell a lot of books before I can do that. I am going to do an ebook though. Brilliant. And I'm going to launch that. And you need to follow my emails and listen out, because we'll announce when we're putting the ebook out, and you'll only have 24 hours to get it at a good price.
Awesome.
And I always like to, if I like a book, I like to get the ebook too, because I like to listen, but I like the book so I can go through and do exercises, or it's easier to find something in a book than on an audio. You don't know where page 51 is, where you read something, you want to go back. But if you go to the book, you can find things easily. If I want to know about all the Claires, I know I can go to page 43. I've read the contents and they're all there. If I want to know about animal communication, I can go to page 137. So the book, I always love books. It'd be sad if we never ever had books.
I think books definitely have their relevance. And I had my very first Teen Goddess circle last weekend, which you would have loved.
Congratulations.
And I took books with me as references for the topics that might come up, so that the teenage girls could go and open the book. So if we talked about neurology, there was a neurology book there. I think it's very relevant because everybody learns differently. Everybody ingests information differently. So if you're visual and you need to read information, that's why blogs are so popular, because people like to take their time and read the information and take it in due course. Some people take it in quickly. Some people need some time to process. So for me, I use them in my workshops, and my clients actually have access to them in the healing room if they want to know more information. Which is
books have got energy too. You pick a book up and you feel it, and you can feel the energy. And my sister comes into my reading room or to my office, and she can feel the energy change.
Yeah.
And I can pick a book up and I can feel the energy change. And sometimes I'll choose a book by just putting my hand over to see whether I like the energy or not. And people go, well, how can that be? But it really is the intention. It's the intention. I want to know. So the spirit world will make you feel whether the book's necessary or not, or whether it's going to be good or not, because they'll put the energy there. Do you see what I'm saying?
I do that when we're playing family card games.
That's
in the edge. To flip a card over, and I'll put my hands on top, and they're like, oh, here we go.
Look, sometimes people don't want to play with me. I remember being in Hawaii, and my manager's daughter wanted to play hangman, and I hadn't played it since a child. And she put some on there fairly easy, and I got them. And then she put one on that was 3 long sentences. And I'm in a different country where they look at things differently. We got to 3 letters and I just bursted out. She says, how did you do that? And I said, just did. And she was like, I mean, that was proof to her that I was the real deal. Do you know what I mean? You need to be able to show when you do a reading that you are correct. And the only way you can do that is by, in the first part of the reading, telling them things they already know. You can't just go in and talk about the future, because they have paths that they're on and they have choices. And you can say to someone, oh, you're going to read this book, and they can prove you wrong by not reading the book. You have to have intent there. And so when people come to you for a reading, the first thing I go through is I'll look at their health. I'll tell them about their personality. I'll tell them that I see for the past 6 months and the next 2 years, and I will bring up things that they already know so they have confirmation. And then I'll start talking about something that's happening in their lives right now. And then that will lead on to, well, this is your path and this is your other path. I'll give you guidance of which path you're on. It's up to you. you think of it as long as you have a client who's has domestic violence problems, and you know that their life will be better if they can leave, but something keeps them there. And so you can say, hey, you need to get off this path onto this, and this is how you can do it, and this is what's going to be like if you do. And yet they make that choice what they do. So telling people the future will not prove that you know what you're talking about. You need to lead up to that. And you were telling me earlier that your good friend had a reading with me. And I went, oh, how did that go? And you said she loved it. Your volume's gone. Just tiny, tiny, I can hear you. So again, no, it's not real loud, but in case it's working on your side, tell us what she thought.
She loved it. She loved the information that came through for her. You know, she really loved receiving that information. And when I connect into that, I see that how much joy readings bring to people, and that it's sometimes just that little lift that they need if they're struggling or they've got some emotional things that they're going through. And when you were speaking before, I was going to ask you, you know, why do you think, what is the purpose of this information being delivered to us in this way?
The purpose is reassurance. It's hope. You need hope. If you cannot see the forest for the trees, if you cannot see a way out of your predicament, you need hope. You need to know that there is something on the other side of the issue that you're involved with. You know, I'll have people that'll come to me because of health issues. And again, I'm not a doctor, and I never tell someone if they're going to go or not, if they're going to die or when they're going to die. That's not for me to see. But they might be in a dead-end job and they need hope to know that another job is coming and how soon. You know, they need hope to see whether they're going to be able to attend someone's wedding in another country and what they need to do to get there. They need hope in those areas. And a lot of the time it's, are my children going to be okay? You know, if they do this, will they be okay? If I send them off on camp, are they going to be okay? Hope. It's all about hope and trust.
Now, as we wrap up today's conversation, where can we purchase your book for our listeners that are listening today?
You can purchase it on my website, www.katy-k.com. It's $5 postage anywhere in Australia, and it's $10 postage anywhere in the world. So it's cheap to get it postage wise, because if I send a deck overseas, sometimes the postage is more than the deck. But I've got a way of getting the deck around the world from a print to order place, and that way I can get it out all over the world. And you can order it from my website and have a look at all the other things as well. And if you read my book, you use my cards, please leave reviews. People need to know if they can trust me. Ask your girlfriend to leave me a review. I'd love that.
I will when I speak to her next.
Yes, your volume just came back.
There you go.
Yeah, that is good. I've loved every minute with you, Kaye, as I always do. And I look forward to coming back and being with you and teaching and guiding people.
And I would love to encourage listeners, if you are wanting to connect to for whatever reason, to your intuition more deeply, to discover your psychic powers and learn how to do that, Katy-K has a wonderful way of teaching, and I really believe through our chats that we've had together that it's really quite easy to understand as well, which is half the battle sometimes, is understanding the information that's being delivered. And so if you like to learn in that way, go and get her book, go and Go and read it. You can take your time, and you always learn something from everything that you decide to look into. If it is in alignment with your heart and your curiosity, your bliss, just follow that. It will always guide you the right way. So if it's something that excites you, go and have a look at a website and see what you can find on there. There's a lot of amazing things on there. And thank you to Katy-K. I love talking to you.
Oh, I love talking to you too. Just if they're looking for free guidance, I do my Facebook Lives, and you'll find that on the Modern Oracle page when those Facebook Lives are on, and you can ask a question or just ask for a message of guidance if you want to. And I also, I do workshops online too, and some free courses. And I've got a lot of free stuff on my learning platform, which is www.katyk.thinkific.com. And so you can access that through my website. I don't expect you to remember all that. But I look forward to coming back, Kaye. It's been amazing talking with you.
And I wish you all the success, and that your book reaches everybody that it needs to reach.
Thank you so much.
See you later.
Bye.